Hey guys, what's up? Andrew here again. I'm back today to create a video to show you how to cut your hair systems. So the hair system I've got on at the minute is looking good. It's nearly there, but the issue that I've got with it at the minute is that it's not really been cut since I got it. So if we just get a comb and take a look at the front of it, you notice that if I pull this up, the length here is super long, but it's also the same as the length at the back. So when you push your hair back in this sort of style, it creates a kind of very uniform look where the top looks like it's almost stuck on and it just kind of stops here. So what we need to do is we need to shorten these side bits underneath here so that we have a bit of graduation going from the very short of my own hair into the system at the top. Because you can see right now that if we look from the front, my hair's here, and then when you pull this out, it instantly jumps to being like long, you know, so it's like really disconnected for one. And then through the top, it is kind of pretty much all the same length. So it kind of hangs awkwardly. So we just want to make it look a little bit choppier. It needs layering a little bit so that it's got a bit more texture to it. It'll also reduce a little bit of this height because there's not going to be as much length and bulk. So it should be able to sit back a little bit better. I'm also going to thin it out a little bit as well. So let's get started. Right guys, so before we get started, we just need to make sure that we have everything that we need. We need some sort of leave-in conditioner, or if you don't have a leave-in conditioner, you can just use a water bottle spray. The hair needs to be a little bit wet because it will stick together better, which means that you don't get hair everywhere as much because you can just, you know, clean the hair up and pick it up easier. It will also make sure that you can just see what you're doing in terms of cutting it. Cutting hair dry is not great for everything, so we do need a water spray or leave-in conditioner. Leave-in conditioner is just a little bit slimier and more conditioning, so it's better for your hair system. Obviously the hair system is not getting any oil from your scalp as such, so it can get a little bit dry. It helps to stop it from getting knotted, stuff like that, so I prefer to use leave-in conditioner over water, but either will do. You need a comb. I use one that is like a barber comb that's got a little bit wider teeth to it, just because the hair pulls up easier through it, rather than like a comb that's got really fine teeth to it. You need a good pair of hairdressing scissors. These are very expensive in some places, but you can get some from Amazon, things like that, which are not going to cost you the whole earth, but they're a lot better than using kitchen scissors. They're a lot sharper. The size is a lot better. These are 6-inch scissors, and yeah, they're made for the job. Also, you need some thinning scissors if you want to thin it out. So these have got kind of wide teeth to them, so it means that it cuts in between, leaves a gap in between, so it's cutting out, kind of reducing the bulk but not taking off all the length. And you also need some clips if you've got them, just because we're going to be doing these side bits on mine, or well, I am today anyway, and we can't get to it, or this hair keeps falling down, so we need to really pin out the hair that we're not touching so that I can get to the parts that I need to touch. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on these side bits, because like I said, these hang down rather awkwardly, and if this was going to be fitted to your head properly, it would go from kind of short to longer. You can have it a little bit disconnected, this is fine, but right now this is looking like way too disconnected. So disconnected is just when it's not blended together, so it doesn't go ideally from short all the way to long. That's fine, but yeah, it's not looking its best because it's pushing these side bits out even more as well because they are quite long, so I want to reduce that to begin with. So yeah, first things first, we need to wet it a little bit. Not massively, you only need like a few sprays. It's just to help tie the hair together a little bit more so that it's kind of in bulk and you can see what you're doing, rather than it being kind of fine stray hairs everywhere. Okay, so we need to start quite low to the bottom because obviously this is the hair that we need to attack first. I would try and take quite small sections if you can, because if you're taking big huge chunks you can't really see what you're doing. So yeah, a small section if you can, and just pin that out the way like that. If it's too dry like this is, you can see this is clearly too dry, give it a few more sprays of water. Using the comb will help to just distribute the water through it evenly so that it's all nice and wet. And you can see now that I can see a lot easier what I'm doing because it's all stuck together, because it's wet, it's not dry. So, where's my scissors? I'm sat on them. Right, so the idea is to, when you look at your head from the front, to get it going from short here, your natural hair, to the longest part at the top. So it shouldn't obviously just go up and then stick right out long. So we need to take this area here. I come from the front like this and pull it straight out, but pull it away from your head like that and slide your 2 fingers in like that. And then we're gonna, it's a bit hard because it's all backwards, but we're gonna, at an angle, cut upwards. Like this. So you see now it's going from the short of my natural hair up into the longer bits. I mean, this hair is going to be underneath the longer hair on top in my particular style. So I mean, it's not going to be the best haircut of your life if you're cutting your hair yourself, you know what I mean? But we make do, especially with Corona. So same again, try and do your best to get it right. And if you can't see what you're doing, my advice is just to comb it down out of the way a little bit. Again, if it's too dry, a little bit more water. I mean, it shouldn't be dripping, but it's going to help you to see what you're doing a little bit better. Also, when you comb it, if you pull it out like that, you're going to be able to see if there's any long bits that you've missed. That bit is actually from the top bit, so don't worry about that. That's from the next section up. But you see how we're looking quite good, apart from this bit at the back here. Same again, pull it out, and you can see where the short bits are and where it gets really long. So that long bit is only the bit that you need to cut off, that bit there, so that we're connecting the shortest bit into the longest bit. I'm not gonna lie, this is a bit hard backwards, but doing my best, so bear with me. Try and put a gown on yourself so you don't cover yourself in hair. I forgot to do that part. But you get the idea. We're getting there. So, I mean, my hair down here is really long, like, and at the back of my neck and stuff, you see. It needs cutting by a proper hairdresser with clippers. It needs, like, fading, but, you know, can't go to the hairdressers right now. So, it is what it is. So, once you're happy with that bit, take your clip out, move up a little bit. Again, quite a thin section if you can. And it helps if you slide it from the front all the way to the back and then push the comb up, the clip upwards, and that'll separate the 2 sections. So you can see we've got another chunk of hair here hanging down. Again, if you can't see what you're doing, a bit more water, gently comb it. And now you can see that we've got the part that we've just done underneath here that's quite short, and then again this huge long chunk that just hangs over. So again, we're going to go in, try and look at your face front on, because you need to be able to see it at the right angle. And you can see where these shorter bits are and where it just gets very awkwardly long up here. That bit. Straight off like that. And again, just move the hair around a little bit, see if there's any awkward bits hanging down. Make sure you've got it all. Once you're happy with it, move on to the next one. And we obviously only need to go up to like the area where, when you look at your face straight, these parts, if you were to imagine 2 straight lines up the side of your face, we're only doing the bits that go up to there. So all this bit is kind of classed as part of the top. So you don't need to worry about it going too high up. We're just worrying about connecting them sides in a little bit more at the minute. Might help you if you wet it a little bit. And then use your comb to move this top part all together into the opposite side like this, because it just pulls all that air out the way so that you can see a little bit more about what you're doing. And this part here is part of the side. There, this bit. But again, you see it's flopping down, so make sure you get the bits that you need and get them clipped out the way. butterfly clips are normally better than these because they're a lot wider. They're kind of like a claw like this, and they clip and they'll drag the hair together rather than just a standard clip. Again, this is way too bone dry. Get it wet. Comb it through. Oh. It's a hard life having hair. You've not had hair for such a long time. Oh. Right. Same again. Pull it straight out from your head. Find the longest part down by your fingers here and this long bit down here. And at an angle, connect the two together. And like I said, don't worry about it being perfect because this is very hard to do yourself, so I applaud your effort if you've got this far. Okay, so let me just comb this out a little bit. So hopefully by this point you can see that this side, especially because I brush it this way, has got like a serious disconnect to it, like it's short and long, whereas this side's starting to look more like it's all one. It's obviously not dry, so it's a bit harder to tell, but you see how it kind of, the two look like there's no serious line between the two. So then we just need to repeat the process on the other side. So we know what we're doing now. Same again, small chunk. And you'll probably find that if you're right or left-handed, you'll find one side a lot easier to do than the other. I haven't glued this down yet. Straight out from the head, short bits, really awkwardly long. Next section, push that down, pull this up. Again, if you can't see what you're doing, a bit more water, comb it. Like that. In we go. So you see, that's the bit we've just done. This is the bit that's awkwardly hanging over the edge. Try to do it at an angle as well. We're trying to do this, we're not trying to go straight up. Yeah, a little bit of an angle going outwards. But as long as you get rid of that massive chunk hanging over, then you're doing it right. We don't want any awkward bits like that sticking out because we're trying to connect the two together. Bam. There. You see? Now there's not as much of a big, huge line hanging over. This hair system is actually a bit too thick for my hair. Like naturally my hair is really quite fine. This one's medium density. I'm definitely more on like the medium light density. And obviously this part here is quite fine. It's a bit lighter looking, so it's never going to be like a very even transition for me because my hair was never thick on the sides either to begin with, not the top or the sides. So but you know, it's going to look more blended than it did before, that's for sure. So same again, there, Whack it off. And this side for me in this style is going to be a little bit longer because I pushed the hair over to this right hand side. It is pushed to the right hand side, so it's going to gather on this right hand corner. So expect this side to be a little bit longer than the other one. Nice, nice. Okay. Right, now we've done the side bits, so we're up the side bits. These are classed really as part of the top, but same again, you can just, without a comb, just take like a decent chunk from the top bit and also from the side bit, a section like that. And then you can just, from the front, looking up forwards, you can just, you see how there's a serious chunk there? Same again, just connect the two together. Let's get there. Brush it down, have a look at it, see what's occurring. Oh, I'm fussy. Right. And I mean, take your time with this, there's no rush. Because I mean, obviously it's very hard to cut your own hair kind of because everything's backwards when you look at it in the mirror. So when you're tilting the scissors like forwards, they're going backwards, and obviously it's kind of flipped as well. So okay, so now my best advice is to get the hair in the style that you want it to sit, like in the direction. You should never cut hair like in the opposite direction to the way that you want it to go, kind of when it's dry like this, because you're going to end up taking parts off an area that don't need hair to be taken off them, which in turn means that when you put it in the actual style you want it, it might not sit right, it might be too long in one part and short in another. It's just going to look a bit of a mess really. So yeah, just put it kind of how you want it in the style that you want it. Same again, if we're too dry and kind of frizzy looking with bits everywhere, it's because it's too dry and it needs to be sprayed down. Try and spray from a little bit of a distance, kind of 30 centimetre distance or so, 20 centimetres, because it will just give you a nice even spray and it's not going to be kind of wet and dripping in one area and bone dry in another. But we're aiming for kind of an even amount of wetness everywhere, yeah? That's what we want, because it will make life easier when we're cutting it and sectioning it. So I'm looking like an extra out of NSYNC at the moment, but we love it. 90s is coming back. So once you're happy with how wet it is, should be evenly kind of wet everywhere. And when you put your comb through it, you should be able to kind of separate it quite easily, because that is going to help us when we're making the sections. So now that it's wet and I'm pushing it back, you can see a little bit better how much better this side is connected together. You see, there's not an awkward chunk hanging over anymore, which is what we were going for, because we want it to be all blended better together. So the next problem we've got is that from front to back, the hair is all the same length. So this hair at the very back here, even though I've obviously your head curves downwards, this hair here is still the same length when you pull it up as the hair at the front, which means that it's very kind of, it hangs like back as one layer rather than kind of looking more natural and choppy. It also means that the weight of it, when you push it back, generally pulls it a bit more straight, which gives it, I prefer it when it's got a bit more of kind of a wave to it. It looks a bit more natural in my opinion. So if it's not all as heavy and long, it's not going to pull it right back, you know. So the next thing we need to do is focus on making the shape of it right from front to back. So generally you have more length in the front than you do at the back. It depends what you're trying to do. If you want it to overhang a little bit at the back and not be blended, then you don't need to worry too much about this. But if you want it to be blended, then it needs to go from long at the back to short. You know, it needs to be kind of like this, so that the longest part is at the front, shortest part is towards the crown at the back, so that it's angled like this. So I would do this by taking a section down the middle, and then what we're going to do is we're going to join the left and the right together into that section, because that's probably the easiest way of doing it on yourself. So I'm just using the edge of the comb to kind of draw a line down the hair, and then I can use it to push that hair down, push this hair down, and then we've got this kind of section in the middle. And this is probably going to be harder than the rest of it, so just thinking about the best way to do this. Because ideally you need to be side on to your head, you know, which is why it's easier if someone else can do it. Right, tell you what, we'll do it a different way. I mean, what we're trying to do is just to get some textured layer into it so that it doesn't hang like this. You see, this one piece is just literally going from like the front to the back. So as long as you've got it combed into the style that you want it to be in, you know, in the right direction and sitting correctly, then you can kind of do it freehand. So I'd take a look at how long the pieces are as well, because this is really long. This is obviously shorter because we've cut it now. So like this bit here, to me, looks like it's hanging in a bit of an awkward panel. It's fine down here because it's shorter getting to longer, but when we get up here it's starting to look a bit wiggy, especially towards the back. Bear in mind that the focus of what we want to do is to take it shorter towards the back. So I would take a piece like this, slide your scissors in at an angle and cut as you move. If you just blunt cut like this, you're going to take a big chunk out, so make sure that it's at an angle and that you're moving kind of downwards, you know. And I mean, ultimately in this style, we're trying to get it looking a little bit choppy, you know, so it doesn't need to be perfect. As long as we're taking more of the length off towards the back in these diagonal strokes. And you can probably see from this one that a lot of my issue is here. This looks nice, it's starting to look choppy, it kind of goes from short to long, but this bit's got like mind of its own at the back. And it's because it's the same length as the front. So I can't really do it on the camera, so I'm just gonna have to do it by feeling it. So I'm going downwards, kind of front to back, towards the back, but I'm keeping moving and I'm at a diagonal. And don't worry about the thickness for now, because we can thin it out afterwards once it's dry. This bit towards the middle back is really long. So I want this bit here to be a little bit more choppy. So we're starting kind of in the middle and then we're going down towards the ends. Right, I'm probably going to leave it at that for now when it's wet because I can't really see what I'm doing. I'll dry it and then I'll carry on once it's dry because that's obviously going to give you the most realistic view of what this is going to look like when it's dry. So we'll continue once it's dry. Alright, we're back. I've dried it off and as you can see the sides are blending into the top a lot better. I still have some issue with this part here because it's too long, and this part, because I part it here and it kind of comes over to the right, you can see that this is just one big sweep. So I had to take a moment to go and have a look in the mirror properly because sometimes it's hard to tell when you're just looking in the phone screen. But yeah, these bits here to me are too long still. So I'm going to go in again and just diagonally cut them so that they're going from long to short. And again, it's just reducing some of that bulk as well. Same here, like this bit, you see this bit's really long. Alright, so now I need to thin it out in certain areas because it's still not sitting right. Definitely towards the back needs to be thinner. This bulky bit here that's kind of sticking up. So my advice would be to do it in sections again. So like pull this forward and down so that it's out of the way. Obviously you need to be able to see what you're doing. And then from the back in chunks. Not the best thinning scissors in the world, these. Not very sharp. So with good ones that actually cut your hair, you should only have to do this like once or twice towards the mid-lengths and ends of your hair. Then move forwards with another section. Thin it out a little bit more. Why are these not cutting? I mean, there's no real right or wrong to the direction you need to pull it when you're thinning it out, as long as you hold the chunk of hair as a section and go through it kind of methodically with one section after another. It's not too much of an issue. If you take too much of a big section, you're not going to be able to cut it properly. Like I said, with this medium density one, this one is way too thick compared to my normal hair. So I'm thinning this out quite a lot because it needs it, basically. I need it to be a lot finer than it is. So if you've been thinning it for a while and you're struggling to get kind of the scissors through it, it might be because there's chunks of hair that are inside your hair that haven't been brushed out yet. So I would just brush through them with a comb to be able to get that out. I'm thinning it more on this right hand side because my hair is pushed over to the right hand side, and obviously it gathers on this corner here because of the style that I've got it in. You're seeing this bulk here. So just towards the mid-lengths and ends, we're just thinning it out a little bit. Get the big chunk of hair out of your scissors, because otherwise it's not going to continue to cut. And we're focusing on the areas that we want to reduce the bulk the most, which is generally towards the back. You see how it's starting to sit better now. And if you over thin the same section too much, you're actually going to start to reduce the length, so be careful of that. Like I said, I'm having to hack at it a little bit more than I would do normally because these scissors are not very good, they're quite old. So they're taking a while to cut through the hair, I think because the hair is so thick as well. But you can see it's starting to look a bit smoother, it's not quite as bulky. But yeah, generally once or twice towards the mid-lengths and ends will take off the amount you need it to take off. You shouldn't have to hack at it several times like I'm doing, so be careful because otherwise you'll end up reducing the length. And now I'm just doing it by feeling kind of which areas are thicker and longer towards the back, because obviously I can't really cut the back of my head, it's very difficult. But you can feel kind of the areas that have been done more than others. And the idea is you want it as even as possible, obviously, so. And then this area here, not as much to do on this side because my hair's not really being pushed over to this side. This is just the part that comes down. So do a bit, brush it back, see how it's looking. You can always take more off, but you can't add it back on. So don't get too scissor happy. Please as well, when you pick up your scissors, be very careful that you've got the right ones and you're using the thinning scissors and not the other scissors, because if you go in and take a big chunk, it's going to obviously cut off a lot of length. And once you've cut it, you can't stick it back on, so yeah, be careful of that. I've done that before. Alright, so when you feel like you've done a decent chunk, let's blast the hair off, give it a brush through and see where we're up to. You might have to do a bit more, you might have to take some off, you might find that some areas are longer than others, but it's kind of just trial and error and kind of brushing it, putting it in the style you want it, just checking it looks right, you know, and we'll go from there. This to me is looking a lot better. There's kind of parts that are shorter, parts that are longer. It's got a kind of choppiness about it, whereas before it just hung like back, you know. So I mean, you could continue to go if you want, but I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking. Maybe not this bit here. There's a little bit that's too thick at the back. Check they're the right scissors. Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, I would advise as well that you just have a quick look at it and just pull bits out and from either side together and just make sure that they're not ridiculously different in length. Obviously, this depends on the type of style you've got, but you should grab a mirror in front of you, grab another mirror, and you can see the back, you can see the sides, you can see kind of how it's looking. And yeah, just keep messing about with it until you're happy with it. But yeah, that's generally a guide on how to cut your hair so that it's a bit more choppy and doesn't hang all in one direction. I hope it was helpful for you, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thanks guys.